and welcome to the second edition of the program from the National Assembly. This time around, I am your host, Georgina Ndukwe-Ezeanyika, and I will be taking you through the activities at the National Assembly, what bills were passed, what motions were taken, and resolutions passed, and of course, interviews with lawmakers on the issues of national importance. Once again, welcome to the program from the National Assembly. Welcome back. It is always a good thing to have a grateful heart, and that is exactly what the Deputy President of the Senate, Senator Ndukwe-Ezeanyika, has done. On the 23rd of February 2020, the senator representing Delta Central Senatorial District held a Thanksgiving service for his victory at the polls and his election as Deputy President of the Senate. However, Reverend Father Anthony Ozele, who delivered a homily at the Thanksgiving service, used the opportunity to lambast political leaders over the level of insecurity in the country. Take a listen.
It was a star-studded service at the Mother of the Redeemer Catholic Church for Delta State. The who is who in Nigeria's political space were all present on Sunday at the Thanksgiving service of the Deputy President of the Senate, Ndukwe-Ezeanyika, to celebrate his victory at the polls. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo captures the mood, commending the courage of the Deputy President of the Senate for emerging victorious in spite of all odds.
For his courage and for his steadfastness and for his reliability, not only was he rewarded by his constituents, who he loves very much, but also by our great party and by the Senate by the 9th Senate, by his election to the position of Deputy Senate President.
But it is not all smiles. Officiating priest Reverend Father Anthony Ozele fires some salvos at political leaders present about the level of insecurity and poverty in the country.
Nigeria is weighed down by social, economic, political problems, as well as insecurity, kidnapping, armed robbery, murder, and all other social vices, the proportion of which we have never seen in our lifetime.
There are people who need to understand that these are very, very serious challenges. Only one man cannot solve all of this. It requires the collective of all of us. Today we need to fix the security situation of this country. Is it possible for the federal alone to fix it? No, it's not even possible for the federal government alone to fix that.
His colleagues at the Senate extolled the leadership quality of the DSP and promised to support him in the task before him.
Those of us that are in the Commission Review Committee is chairing it, as Deputy Senate President. Of course, that again is going to be one task that a lot of Nigerians are looking forward to, that will change the fortunes of our people. So a lot of us are going to join hands with him.
The review committee are being challenged to deliver a document that truly reflects the wishes of the people.
This week, the Senate asked President Muhammadu Buhari to reconstitute the Federal Character Commission, as failure to do so will amount to a breach of the 1999 Constitution and the acts of the Commission. The resolution followed a motion by Minority Leader Ndukwe-Ezeanyika, who noted that the tenure of the board of the Commission had elapsed since 2018 and therefore was being run illegally. Here's the report.
The Federal Character Commission is meant to monitor and ensure equitable employment of Nigerians across the 6 geopolitical zones into the country's civil service. The 36 commissioners on the board have served out their tenures in the commission since 2018, but have not been replaced by the federal government. Senator Ndukwe-Ezeanyika said so far there are no indications as to when these commissioners will be replaced.
Failure to reconstitute the commission amounts to a constitutional breach of the Act establishing the Federal Character Commission.
In the Act of the Commission, there is no provision which stipulates the role of a sole administrator or an acting chairman to run the affairs of the Commission. The Senate is therefore demanding for an urgent reconstitution of the FCC board, as this will ensure equity and equality in appointments and recruitment into government agencies.
It's very important that we have the full complement of the Commission in place. And I believe that with this resolution, the executive would expedite action to reconstitute the membership of the commission.
In the meantime, the Senate has reacted to the recent attack on Garkida community in Adamawa State by asking the Chief of Army Staff to establish a command center in the community.
The National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, to urgently assess the extent of damage and provide relief materials immediately to the Garkida community affected.
The Northeast Development Commission has also been urged to rehabilitate areas destroyed by the insurgents.
The senators in the week paid tribute to their colleague representing Plateau South, Senator Ignatius Longjan, who died on the 10th of February 2020. One after the other, they stood up to eulogize Senator Longjan, describing him as a detribalized Nigerian, a lover of peace and social justice. In this report, you get to hear how much his contributions will be missed on the floor of the Red Chambers.
The valedictory session for Senator Ignatius Longjan was the only item on the order paper. Senator Ignatius Longjan had served in various capacities in the Plateau State government and in the diplomatic community before he was elected into the National Assembly in 2019. Sadly, he succumbed to the cold hands of death on the 10th of February 2020 at the age of 75 years after a brief illness. On Wednesday, his colleagues stood to eulogize his virtues in the presence of members of his family in the Red Chambers. The Senate Majority Leader led the valedictory session, saying the Plateau lawmaker believed in giving the best to his people.
A devout Christian, committed and God-fearing man, he served God and humanity with all his heart and might. A totally detribalized Nigerian, a patriot and a bridge builder.
He wasn't looking his usual self. So I asked him, I said, Oga, what's wrong? He said that he's not feeling quite strong. I said, Oga, you need to rest. This thing, you don't need to kill yourself. Just rest and take your time. That was the last discussion I had with him. That is inevitable. It will come back of a sudden. What I'm trying to say is that we must prepare. Let our righteous good deeds more than our bad.
Having worked with Senator Longjan as permanent secretary in the Plateau State government for 8 years, Senator Idigyang said his life was characterized by loyalty and service to his people.
I celebrate this humanist, a gentleman, an elder statesman, and indeed a departed father and colleague.
This is another sad moment for all of us. Holding a valedictory session for a distinguished colleague is always a reminder of the sad reality of death.
Senator Longjan laid in state at the atrium of the National Assembly all through the session. After observing a minute's silence, the senators paid their last respects. His body was immediately taken to Jos, Plateau State, where he will be buried. The first case of the coronavirus in sub-Saharan Africa has been confirmed in Nigeria. The patient is an Italian citizen who works in Nigeria and flew into the commercial city of Lagos from Milan on the 25th of February. Authorities say he's in stable condition with no serious symptoms and is being treated at a hospital in the city. Now, on Thursday, the Senate had called on the federal government to endeavor to screen travelers coming into the country to prevent the spread of the coronavirus in Nigeria. The president of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan, gave the charge on Thursday during plenary after a motion by the senator representing Ondo North Senatorial District, Ajayi Borough. Senator Lawan stressed the need to carry out screening at all entry points into Nigeria, including the air and the seaports. He also mandated the committees on primary health care and health to work directly with the Ministry of Health to ensure thorough screening of travelers at all entry points into the country.
When we landed in South Africa, we were not allowed to leave the aircraft for a good 30 minutes. Officers of the Medical Corps of the South African Army came into the aircraft and screened everybody before we were allowed out of this aircraft. When I arrived yesterday at the Ndukwe airport, there was no screening. All we were given is a sheet of paper to indicate whether we were sick, whether we have been to one country or the other, and how we'll be contacted in emergency. What are you contacting in emergency? How do you train me? How do you know whether I fall sick after I left the airport?
We must take all the necessary measures at our ports, airports, seaports, People who are coming back to Nigeria, especially from areas that we have been identified to have this, in fact, should be screened. This is the least we can do. If someone is coming back from China, he should be quarantined, not self-isolation. Should be quarantined for whether it is 2 weeks or 4 weeks. We have to protect the lives of Nigerians.
The Senate President also mandated its committees on primary health care and health to work directly with the Ministry of Health to ensure a thorough screening of travelers at all entry points. We will take a break. When we return, we'll go over to the Green Chambers to see resolutions reached this week. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Now over to the Green Chamber. The House of Representatives has passed into second reading the controversial immunity bill for presiding officers. Now, the bill, sponsored by Representative Segun Odebumi, eventually scaled through despite rejection from the opposition party. Members who opposed the bill said Nigerians are already going through so much hardship and incident killings in the country. Now, according to the sponsor, the bill will go a long way to protect presiding officers from harassment and distraction while in office.
I'm not talking of this, the present rate, but I'm talking of, by the time we have privilege of serving in this army chamber, but tomorrow, another officer will be there. But when we look back, we should be able to say we have been able to stabilize this nation. Is it right? What is that we cannot do on this floor and be held accountable over the presiding officers that should be so desirous of us passing an amendment to include a clause that says there should be immunity for presiding officers? Mr. Speaker, I think it's wrong and it should not be allowed. We say that since we are in the process of constitutional amendment, I will pray that we subject this as part of the constitutional amendment. Let us not look at it as a bill separate on its own, and then just like we have allowed other constitutional amendment to go through, we allow it, and then we go to hear what Nigerians would say as a consensus, then we will only go to hear what every other person. If it talks about the issue of benefits, Mr. Speaker, or the issue of commencement date, it has to be on the very same day that Mr. President gives his assent to the constitutional amendment bill as in consent section 308 of the 1999 constitution as amended.
Whatever happens to this bill, it must be tweaked in a way that the present presiding officers cannot benefit from it, because we are caught by several legal issues. One, the doctrine of nemo dat in causa sua, which means you cannot be a judge in your own cause, and two, the potential conflict of interest.
Following the increasing spate of insecurity in the country, a member of the House of Representatives, Jahal Ahmed, says Nigeria's security chiefs must tender their resignation in the interest of the country. Representative Jahal Ahmed from Borno State made the call on the floor of the House on Tuesday in his contribution to recent attacks in Borno State, especially the northeastern part of the country. He is of the opinion that lawmakers from Borno State and his humble self may be forced to resign their position if solutions to the insecurity problems in the state are not met.
The insurgents came into the village, they realized that nobody is in the village. So they lay an ambush against the Nigerian military. Nigerian military, on hearing the information that some community is going to be attacked, so they went to the community to wait for their arrival without knowing that they have already laid ambush waiting for them. Before you realize what is happening, they kill one soldier and they go away with 4 gun trucks belonging to Nigerian Army. So the 2 gun trucks belonging to Nigerian Army and 2 Hilux cars belonging to Vigilante and civilian JPF. And for your information, these insurgents came in with 11 brand new gun trucks. Where are they getting this thing? I told you, only God knows where they are getting this thing. This attack in Gakida, Honorable Mubad, so honorable members, we beg you, we should do something about this. The families are out of idea. We thank them, they have done their best. When they take it, they take with strength, they take with fever, they take with commitment to end this thing. But now they are full of complacency Nigerians, but not next time, if care is not taken, a lot of honorable members on this floor of the House can tender their resignation because, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not comfortable. My people are dying and I'm here enjoying.
The level of insecurity in the country is becoming worrisome. Well, the House of Representatives wants something to be done about it. Speaker of the House of Representatives says the Nigerian police must work towards restoring public confidence of the institution for a better Nigeria. The Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, made this known while declaring open a one-day public hearing on enhancing the Nigeria police force. Issues that topped the agenda included harassment of Nigerians by police and increasing cases of extrajudicial killings in the country.
I say inconvenient truth, it is just for today. Out of this hearing, we expect that far-reaching recommendations will be made by this committee to give more, to increase or to look at the welfare of the police so we can get concomitant results from that.
He directed me to invite the Inspector General of Police. We discussed extensively and he gave me the instructions to held this public hearing so that we will allow the public to assemble ideas, come up with very potent ideas within which we can position the Nigerian police for a better policy.
Now, the House of Representatives plans to investigate all aspects of sex, slavery, and recommend appropriate budgeting and legislative measures to stem the tide. Now, this followed the motion sponsored by Representative Shawolu Ramende and 7 co-sponsors who decried the increasing number of Nigerian women who have been turned into sex slaves around the world. The lawmakers are worried that Nigerian women are trafficked mainly to areas in the south and central part of Mali, but a substantial number are trafficked to rebel-held areas in the north of Mali where they stand the risk of being used for sex slavery.
And the fact of the matter also is that a lot of these people who go through this degradation, when they are finally freed, they now want to also enslave other people. So we need to do something very urgently in terms of our laws, in terms of empowering the security agencies to be able to do something about the situation that we have.
So it is a collective responsibility of all sectors of governance in order to address this problem. But because the money that is involved in this global criminal industry, it is difficult to deal with without strong legislations from countries, jurisdictions, and even local entities so that they can deal with this matter.
So it is very, very important that vocational jobs, vocational trade should be emphasized in this country to ensure that we make them drift away from this unseen circumstance they put themselves into.
So it is important, dear colleagues, that we talk to ourselves and other people in position of authority to see what we can do to alleviate poverty in the land.
You're still watching the program from the National Assembly. Let's take a short break. When we return, we will continue the interview with the Deputy Chairman, Senate Committee on Tertiary Institutions and TED Fund, Senator Sandy Jang Ono, on the sexual harassment bill sponsored by the Deputy President of the Senate, Ovie Omoagege. Do stay with us. Welcome back. The Sexual Harassment of Students in Tertiary Institutions Prohibition Bill seeks to impose stiffer penalties on perpetrators of sexual assault and harassment. The bill was first introduced in the 8th Senate, but it did not scale through the House of Representatives. Now, this time around, the 9th Senate has promised to ensure that this bill is given the desired attention. However, the National President of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, Professor Biodun Ogunyemi, suggests that lecturers are being stigmatized by this bill. Now, here is Senator Sandy Ono's view on this bill.
Prevention or Prohibition Bill. We held a public hearing yesterday.
Yes.
Several stakeholders who came and gave their own recommendations as to how to strengthen the bill. But as to Well, on the other side, they were like, the bill is stigmatizing us, it's targeted at us, and it's discrediting the educationist or the educator in tertiary institutions.
You know, usually it is difficult to take on ASU when it comes to arguments, you know, but so, yeah, you know, so, and I am a part of ASU, I mean, in a sense, you know, I'm a university person. But so I will agree with them to some extent. Yeah, if there are extant laws, why do you proliferate them? Why do you proliferate? You know, bring more. Sometimes the trouble with us as a country is not being able to implement what is available. I mean, it's like this hate speech bill that is being talked about, or the social media bill. My take is that there are extant laws to deal with same. Why do you need to proliferate? Why do you institutionalize the tendency for hatred? Why not a love speech bill, for instance? You know, but that is on one hand. On the other hand, because of the huge nature and implications of sex for marks in the university, there is need for something specific to be done to show Nigerians that we are serious about it. The lecturers will be on their toes. The students will be on their toes. Nigerians would also be happy that something specific is being done about it. To that extent, I don't see anything wrong with it. For me, as far as that is concerned, because of the strong impulses this generates and the meaning for our education, there should be such a bill. There's nothing wrong with it. In this instance, for me, the more the merrier. Okay? So nobody goes to the university to begin to imagine that it's a place for sex. To ban the sex is a place to ban the knowledge. Okay? No more, no less. So I don't agree it stigmatizes lecturers. It also stigmatizes the young girls who make themselves vulnerable. Because no matter what you tell me, there are other young girls who pass through that system and take their studies very seriously and refuse to be victims. If you take your studies seriously as a young girl and you are very confident, I mean, you would refuse to be a victim. Yeah, there's the other side where they say they are intimidated and so on and so forth. Whatever is the case, let there be proper laws, let there be specific laws to deal with this situation. So I do not agree with ASU in this instance that there shouldn't be an additional law. There should be an additional law because it is a very heavy situation that deserves a multifaceted legislative agenda to deal with it conclusively. In fact, we should encourage more young girls to stand up and be counted as far as that is concerned, you know. One of the biggest problems we have in this country is the inability of victims to stand up. People think that when you stand up, you remain with a stigma forever. It's stupid. Developed countries have demonstrated that most of the time you stand up and you are a hero.
And that's the size of the program this week. Thank you so much for watching from the National Assembly. We'll be back next week to give you insights into the activities and resolutions reached at both chambers of the National Assembly. My name is Georgina Ndukwe-Ezeanyika. Bye for now.